Hey, what's the big idea barging in like that? Just because you're a foreigner doesn't mean you can do whatever you want. The scene is at a pub where I work part-time. A large foreigner is yelling loudly. The buzzed customers around him are getting agitated. Caught in the middle is a nearly teary-eyed college girl, Lily. At this rate, it seems like someone might start a fight. For a moment, I hesitated to intervene. If I did, they might find out the secret I've been hiding since I started working here. Everyone might be heartbroken when they find out about my hidden past. But seeing the distressed Lily made all my fears seem insignificant. I wanted to help her. With that determination, I stepped out of the kitchen and stood in front of the irate foreigner. And then, my name is Max. Ever since I was young, I've struggled with social interactions. It didn't matter the gender or age, I simply found it hard to converse with others. I remember feeling this way since kindergarten. Back then, what interested me the most were books. I started with picture books and gradually became interested in novels. Of course, many of the words were too advanced for me at the time, and I probably didn't grasp more than half of the content. Nevertheless, I thoroughly enjoyed trying to understand the settings and the emotions of the characters. That process was my greatest joy. However, understandably, my peers weren't interested in that at all. When I tried to talk about it, they'd say, "I have no clue what Max is talking about." Conversely, I couldn't relate to the cartoons or comics they discussed. Ever since then, I've lived a life avoiding much interaction with others. But you can't go through life all alone. My laid-back mom, noticing that I, now in college, still spent most of my time alone, told me, "You should really get out more and make at least one friend. If that's too much, at least get a job and see more of the world." Of course, I understood what my mom said, but I really didn't want to interact with people. I was even looking for a job where I could work independently. You can't go through life all alone, you know. Actually, if you took up a part-time job or something, you might find some folks you really click with. Even my dad sided with my mom. Reluctantly, I realized they were both teaming up to tell me this. Given the circumstances, right after graduation, I started looking for a part-time job. Around that time, the only senior at college who would talk to me referred me to a pub. When I explained the situation, he said, "If that's the case, want to try working here?" So, I ended up working at the pub he recommended. That pub isn't part of a chain or anything. It's run by my senior, who's the manager. According to senior, it's an old establishment handed down from his grandfather, and the menu shows its age. It's worn and torn in places. I really like the unique taste it has. The manager, either seriously saying this or just not wanting to change things, would set things up with a laugh that made you unsure of his true intention. The seating arrangement included a few counters and tables, and the establishment only had 2 small booth areas. Moreover, the manager was seldom at the restaurant. As he had other tasks to attend to, he usually left the place to his assistant manager, named John. That guy really works me to the bone. He always makes me do the complex dishes, so my cooking skills just keep improving. Yet, my pay doesn't reflect it, John said with a chuckle, quickly preparing dishes. As John himself would say, he was truly skilled in cooking. Not only was he efficient, but his seasoning was spot on. Especially his omelet. It was so fluffy and wobbly, it felt like you could actually hear it jiggling. The regulars who visited the pub would almost certainly order the omelet made by John. There was another employee in the pub. The only female staff member was Lily, who worked part-time. Being a college student, she worked 3 times a week. Unlike me, she spoke brightly with everyone and had a dazzling smile. Regulars often commented, "You know, the reason I keep coming back here is because of Lily." Although I was grateful for the job, I wasn't good at customer service. Dealing with tipsy customers was particularly tough, and since I often couldn't communicate well with others, I was mainly relegated to the kitchen. The kitchen was John's territory. Despite him being faster on his own, he seemed to purposely delegate tasks to me. Thanks to that, my cooking skills improved rapidly. I've always had a passion for cooking. It's something I can quietly focus on by myself, without needing conversation. Never did I think this trait of mine would be so useful here. Contrary to my expectations, this place gets quite a crowd. When I was first introduced to this gig and saw the somewhat old-fashioned establishment, I assumed not many folks would frequent it. Boy, was I wrong. This joint has an assortment of alcohols, from popular domestic brews to rare local spirits, even international liquors, all thanks to the manager's fondness for booze. I still wonder where he sources them from. The location is prime too. It's conveniently located near major highways and exits, with plenty of traffic passing by. A short stroll away, there's a residential area. We get all kinds of customers, from long-time regulars to college students fresh out of their club activities. The three of us mainly ran this always busy place. To think that it was managed by just 2 people before I came aboard is mind-boggling. Lily, though occasionally messing up orders, has many fans among the customers. "It's all right, kiddo, I lead it," the old man often says, stepping in to help out. John often grumbles, "Darn, where's the manager goofing off now? Think I should deep fry him or something?" But he's always cooking with a grin on his face. "John, this omelet is just out of this world," Lily's voice echoes from the dining area. To which he'd reply, "All right, I'll whip up another one for free, on the house." Sure, it was a busy gig, but I look forward to every shift. Half a year flew by since I started. Every day was hectic, but it felt hundreds of times more fulfilling than before. I was getting more adept in the kitchen, and could even anticipate what John needed without him asking. At times, I'd also help Lily out. Helping, in this context, meant delivering dishes to the tables closest to the kitchen. After closing up, the 4 of us would occasionally have drinks. The manager would bring out some fancy drink he wanted to try, offering everyone a glass. John, on the other hand, would quickly prepare some delicious snacks that paired perfectly with the drink. And it's always typical for Lily to grumble while she drinks. Lily is in the literature department, majoring in classical literature. She wants to be a librarian in the future. Her words excited me. Indeed, living surrounded by books sounds wonderful. For me, such days would be a luxury. Sadly, being in a science department, I can't get a librarian's certification. When she gets tipsy, she starts talking non-stop about infamous stories of famous authors. "You know, I love Fitzgerald. Oh, I mean F. Scott Fitzgerald. But just for his looks." John sighed. "How many times have I heard that? Fitzgerald was a jerk, right?" John probably had heard these complaints way before I started working here. Not just him. Fitzgerald stalked Hemingway, and Hemingway had stalked Fitzgerald. "So, what you're saying is, all we got from classic literature are stalkers. Aren't there any decent guys?" The manager urged Lily to improve the image of classical literature. Well, Poe was always in debt, and Bukowski was known to love his alcohol, to a fault. Lily, in her drunken state, couldn't help but lower the reputation of these literary figures. Even these famous guys were this bad, right? Men are just the worst in the world. What a radical statement. Though I thought so, both the manager and John were like, yeah, all men are trash, trying to comfort her. It wasn't the first or second time Lily made such remarks. Whenever we had a drink after work, she would always bring up these authors as examples to stress how terrible men are. I have a feeling she might have had a bad experience with a guy in her past. But neither John nor the manager asked her for details, nor did they explain anything to me. I was curious, but I couldn't ask Lily directly. I was also surprised that I became interested in Lily's past. Before I knew it, I became intrigued by a coworker, which was quite unexpected for someone like me who generally isn't interested in others. In these 6 months, I silently applauded the growth in my feelings. During my part-time job period, there was something else I noticed. The manager seemed to be quite fond of Lily. I mean, he seemed to really like her, if you catch my drift. He was quite the caretaker, or perhaps just very attentive. Well, they are both of the right age, so there's nothing wrong with that. There shouldn't be an issue, but I can't help but watch their interactions. That's how my days went by. One day, as usual, manager wasn't around, so the three of us were serving the customers. It was a typically busy day when something out of the ordinary happened. We had a foreign customer. Judging by looks might not be fair, but that customers probably were German. They were around 6 feet 3 inches tall and extremely muscular. If they were to punch a guy like me, I reckon just one hit would shatter all my bones. And it wasn't just 1 or 2 of them. They were 6. I hadn't anticipated such big folks coming into such a tight space in the pub. Lily, taken aback, led them to the seating area. It got a bit crammed because of the other customers, but it couldn't be helped. The foreign customers seemed to understand the place was busy, so they didn't complain and just ordered. Their English was broken, but Lily managed to take the orders and safely return to the kitchen. Phew, I made sure to take that order very carefully. John joked, if you messed up, you'd probably get a whooping. At that comment, Lily double-checked the order slip and muttered, maybe I should ask again. Luckily, all the ordered dishes were served, and the foreign customers left looking satisfied. After that, customers kept pouring in without a break. Cooking non-stop, I took a moment to look at the clock and realized it was almost closing time. I was pretty worn out. Peeking into the dining area, there were still some customers, but most seemed ready to leave or had finished their meals. Just as we were about to start cleaning up the kitchen. What? Lily's voice echoed into the kitchen. Rushing back into the restaurant with great speed was the foreigner who had dined earlier. Whether he was drunk or had simply rushed back, his face was flushed and easily visible even from the kitchen. Brushing past Lily, he headed straight for the booth they had occupied earlier. From inside, a voice exclaimed, "Who the heck is this guy?" That private booth was already occupied by other local customers. You can bet they were frightened when a flushed and imposing foreigner suddenly burst in while they were just having a drink and a bite. But those customers seemed a little tipsy too and quite spirited. Hey, just because you're a foreigner doesn't mean you can do whatever you want. The foreigner was shouting back, but in German, so the locals had no clue what he was saying. What's he going on about? It was worse than a normal drunken brawl. Just as they seemed about to come to blows, Lily stepped in. Please wait, everyone just calm down a bit. With a lady stepping in between, things seemed to cool down a bit. However, the foreigner then began to interrogate Lily. He had been speaking in broken English earlier because he was calm, but now he was rapidly firing questions at Lily in accented German. Of course, Lily didn't understand what the customer was saying and looked bewildered, mumbling, well, John, who had been watching the situation from the kitchen, remarked, "This isn't good. I'll call the manager right away," and headed to the locker room. I thought I'd wait for the manager to come. Honestly, I could somewhat understand what that foreigner was saying. Though I couldn't catch every word due to the distance, if I got closer and he spoke more calmly, I'd probably understand almost everything. But if I did that, it might ruin the life I've built up to now. I've just gotten used to this job at the pub, and I've been blessed with great coworkers. I couldn't just throw that all away. Just as I was thinking this, I caught Lily's eye. Her eyes were filled with tears, but she mouthed the words, "It's okay" to me. Seeing her like that, I acted before I even thought about it. I moved toward the space between the foreigner and Lily. I stepped in and spoke to the foreigner in German. For a moment, he seemed taken aback. However, once he realized I spoke German, he relayed his concerns very quickly. Understanding what he was saying, I turned to face Lily. "Lily, did this gentleman leave anything behind in this private room when he left earlier today?" Lily looked puzzled for a moment, but then seemed to recall, "Oh, there was something." She then brought a small black box wrapped in cloth from the kitchen. It was a pretty old-looking box. Upon seeing it, the foreigner exclaimed, "Oh," and grabbed it. Upon opening the box, an antique fountain pen emerged. "That's what he was looking for," I said. Upon hearing this, Lily replied, "Oh, I see. It looks quite old, but it seems to be well maintained. I thought it might be a cherished item, so I kept it stored carefully to ensure it wouldn't get scratched." It would have been nice if she remembered it right away, but if this large man raised his voice at her, she'd probably get too nervous to remember anything. According to the foreigner, this fountain pen was handed down from his grandfather. During wartime, his grandfather, who had been injured on the battlefield, was treated by an American soldier who was his enemy. Even after the war, he kept in touch with that American soldier, who had then passed on this fountain pen to him. Since then, it has been handed down to his son and grandson and kept safely. Normally, it is kept in his bedroom at home, but he thought it would be fitting to bring it on his trip to America. He always carried it with him, but it must have fallen out of his bag at some point. He realized he had lost his fountain pen while walking with his friends after leaving this pub, so he hurriedly came back. The foreigner kept bowing and saying "Thank you, I'm sorry," multiple times. While this was happening, from the kitchen, John with a brush in hand came out, and from the entrance, the manager entered the dining area holding a broom. By the time they both arrived, the situation had been resolved. A muscular man was apologizing profusely to me, and the mood was light, with some clapping and cheering probably due to a few drinks. Later that night, instead of our meal, the four of us had some snacks. Lily sat next to me and said, "Thank you so much for today. I was so scared, I thought I'd faint." She laughed but, as expected, was leading up to a question. "But how did you know German? And not just a bit, you were fluent, right?" John chimed in after those words. "Exactly. You communicated just fine. Who the heck are you, Max?" It was the worst-case scenario I had feared. I looked to the manager for help, but he was just smirking, taking small sips of his local beer. I thought it was time to spill the beans. Actually, after graduating from MIT, I decided to pursue my graduate studies there, aiming for a research position that I could handle alone. I was planning to go to Germany this September to further enhance my skills. I did all this just to work alone, something my folks criticized, but it was crucial for my life's plan. Until September, I thought I had time, perhaps for some reading at home. That's when my parents, as I mentioned earlier, told me to get a part-time job. That's how I ended up working at this pub, being invited by the manager, my college senior. Even now, I study German in my free time and can comfortably converse in German. I plan to further focus on mastering technical terms and such. I apologized for keeping all this a secret. I was afraid that if I told John and Lily that I graduated from MIT, they wouldn't treat me the same. I had recently discovered the joy of socializing, and the thought of our bond breaking was terrifying. But that doesn't excuse the fact I was faking it. I deeply apologized for that. The two were stunned for a moment, but quickly snapped back, and John said, spitting in disbelief, "Hold on, I have so many questions, but if Max's senior is the manager, does that mean the manager went to MIT too? Wait, going to Germany? In September? That's just 2 months away. Are you quitting, Max?" Lily approached me with a fiery intensity. If she had shown that spirit earlier with the foreigner, I bet she could have handled it herself, but I only thought that and kept it to myself. By the way, the manager chimed in. This guy was top of his class in college. That unnecessary comment only stirred the pot more, causing a bigger commotion among the two. Max, sure, I was surprised to hear you graduated from MIT, but that doesn't change the fact that we've worked together this long. I'll miss you in just 2 months. I want to become closer friends. From that day on, Lily seemed to warm up to me, and I too began to trust her more. Every day, although gradually, I found myself laughing more. However, an issue arose just a week before the end of my part-time job. That day, as usual, the manager was out, and unfortunately, it was also John's day off. Luckily, the pub wasn't too busy, and Lily and I could manage just fine. During that time, a rough-looking middle-aged man walked in. Since Lily was busy delivering food, I handled the customer service. By now, I have become quite good at handling customers. When I showed him to a table, he asked me, "Is there a girl named Lily here?" I thought he was placing an order, but he was actually asking for a staff member. While I was trying to grasp what he meant, Lily came out of the kitchen with some dishes. Seeing her, the man shouted, "Lily, you, so this is where you've been hiding." Upon seeing the man's face, Lily froze in place. She had a look of sheer terror. Not the surprise and fear she had with foreigners, but pure, unadulterated fear. She was so scared she couldn't move a muscle. The man tried to forcibly grab Lily's arm and drag her outside. I immediately stepped in. "What are you doing to our employee?" My voice was strong, but it was drowned out by his shouting. "Shut up. You should mind your own business. It's a parent's right to handle their child." Parent? Is he claiming to be Lily's father? Yet, he doesn't seem to be lying. Just because you're a parent doesn't mean you can do whatever you want. What's wrong with you? My words annoyed him, and he kicked over a chair in the pub. Who the hell do you think you're talking to? Ignoring the other customers, he started punching the wall and throwing chairs, causing a ruckus. Screams erupted from the surrounding customers. This could lead to police involvement. Unfortunately, I'm your typical geek. I've never been in a fight my whole life. Being fluent in German doesn't help in this situation. Lily's in trouble right in front of me, and I'm helpless. Lily's father shouted at me, "What can a little punk like you do?" and took a swing. But I had no idea how to dodge, so I just closed my eyes, bracing for impact. I heard a dull thud. Yet, I felt no pain. Hesitantly, I opened my eyes and saw a wall in front of me. To be precise, it was a massive, wall-like back. I remembered. Today, in the back private room, that foreigner Eric with the fountain pen had come in with his buddies. Eric said in broken English, "Oh nice, is it my turn now?" flexing his fist. Lily's father was taken aback for a moment by the sudden appearance of the imposing man. But he quickly regained his confidence and shouted, "What's with the foreigner stepping in?" Eric then began speaking in German, his voice calm but with palpable anger. Lily's dad didn't understand a word the big foreigner in front of him was saying. To make matters worse, he soon realized he was surrounded by Eric's crew. He looked like a dwarf surrounded by giants. Eric asked me to translate. Just to clarify, I'll translate exactly what Eric is saying. I began. I serve as a police officer in Germany. It's a dangerous job, often confronting violent criminals. I can't arrest you here in the US, but turning you over to the local authorities would probably be easier than facing some of the criminals back home. If it comes to that and you resist, be prepared to get hurt. You might need a few months to fully recover, or so, he says. Soon after, the other foreigners started sharing their professions. I'm a boxer. I'm in the military. Each profession seemed tough. It appeared the confidence of the once bold father was shattered as he hastily and clumsily retreated. As he left, The surrounding customers showered Eric and his muscle crew with applause. Lily respectfully bowed and expressed her gratitude. She asked me to translate her feelings, but when I assured her that her gratitude was evident to Eric and the others without any translation, she let out a sigh of relief. Eric and his friends apparently traveled from Germany to the U.S. to attend the wedding of an American friend. That friend, it seems, is also an American football player. Eric wanted to express his gratitude to Lily for carefully storing his cherished fountain pen, so he visited the pub once more before heading back to Germany. Of course, he added that he also enjoyed the food here. In particular, he loved the variety of liquor they had. He was grateful that they took care of his grandfather's cherished item, and felt relieved that he could now reciprocate the kindness. He said it now felt easier to head back to Germany. Tears streaming down her face, Lily bowed deeply as she and I bid Eric and his group goodbye. After closing up, I quickly phoned the manager to fill him in on the day's events. He listened silently throughout the conversation, but when I finished, he slowly began to speak. What the manager revealed left me quite surprised. Turns out, the manager was Lily's maternal uncle. He was 16 years younger than his sister, Lily's mother, making Lily his niece. The manager, a successful businessman, was running the pub as a hobby. Lily's parents had had an arranged marriage. Apparently, arranged marriages are still common among the elite and prominent families. Even though they were married, her father had a short temper, easily getting physical at the slightest provocation. To top it off, he apparently had an affair. This became the final straw that led to their divorce. However, he vanished without paying any alimony or child support. Growing up, Lily had witnessed her father's behavior, leading her to develop a distrust towards men. Even though she led a comfortable life with her mother after the divorce, Lily still struggled with this mistrust. Her father's side of the family went into debt after their business venture failed. This time, the reason why they tried to take Lily with them is unclear. The manager said that they might have intended to demand money from Lily's maternal grandparents using Lily, or they might have tried to make money using her. I was simply taken aback by Lily's father. I couldn't believe that not only did he physically abuse his own daughter, hitting and kicking her, but he also had the audacity to ask for money. He was worse than any low-life Lily ever complained about. But just because such a scumbag was driven off by a foreigner once, doesn't mean he wouldn't come back a second or third time. When I expressed this concern, the manager said, "Don't worry, I'll handle it. It's my pub after all. It can't let you steal all the glory, right?" I could tell he was smirking even over the phone. Later, there was a news article about a company's CEO being arrested for tax evasion in a corner of the newspaper. The company had been struggling for a while, and there were reports of unpaid wages to employees and illegal working hours. The article said company CEO, but the man in the newspaper photo looked quite shabby. I wasn't sure if that man was Lily's father, as I honestly didn't remember his face, but since then, he never came looking for Lily. A few days before heading to Germany, I finished my last shift and was ready to go home. "Max, are you really leaving? Without you, this place won't run. It's probably on its last legs, you know." As always, John had sharp words for the manager. With tears streaming down her face, she tried to stop me. "When you come back to the States, you absolutely have to visit this place. I'll be waiting," said the ever-cheerful Lily. I replied, "Definitely," and then left the pub. Lost in thought about the whirlwind past few months, my phone buzzed with a text notification. It was a message from Lily. "Can we keep in touch?" Seeing the message, I immediately turned around and ran back to the pub, which was now out of sight. When I arrived at the pub, Lily was already standing at the entrance. "The manager said he's taking the day off, so you can head home," Lily said, looking puzzled. Through the pub's window, I could see the manager giving a thumbs up. Seeing that, I blurted out, "Lily, there's something I really want to talk about." I had been engrossed in my research in Germany. Every day was an exhilarating experience, surrounded by talented people, something I couldn't have experienced in the US. It wasn't just about being smart. I was amazed by their creativity and perspective, which was entirely different from Americans. Plus, Germans express their opinions at an incredibly fast pace. To be honest, every day I'm struggling to keep up with the conversation. I kept checking my watch. Only 5 minutes had passed since I last checked. Noticing this, a fellow researcher named Payne teased me. "Keep checking your watch like that, and your girlfriend's gonna get jealous." The group around burst into laughter. "I get to see her today after so long. I really need to go," I replied. Even as Payne and the others continued their banter, I made my way to the airport without another thought. While waiting for Lily at the airport, I found myself lost in thought. Relationships with others are indeed a mysterious thing. Reluctantly, I'd taken up a part-time job at the insistence of my parents. In just a few months, I'd gotten the hang of customer service. I'd lived a life avoiding interactions and had planned to continue doing so. Now, here I was, being teased by colleagues and waiting for my girlfriend at the airport. I wondered how Eric, who had brought Lily and me closer, was doing. Becoming his interpreter and even handling her overbearing father had solidified our bond. It's incredible how small interactions can yield such significant results. Engaging with others truly enriches life, I realized. As I was having this thought, a familiar voice called out from behind. "Hey, Max, sorry to keep you